Hello, super expanders. You guys are in for such a treat because I have the the most magical person sitting here right in front of me on my Zoom screen, and I can't wait to share her with you. Her name is Miss Daisy Quin Mack. And I actually, it's funny as I go to introduce you, I'm like, does she go by the whole thing or does she just go by Daisy Mack? I'm not really sure. But we know each other. But it's so funny when you like see someone's name like on social media or in emails, and a lot of times you see the full name and it just gets ingrained to you, like to say the whole full name. So I'd love for you just to take a minute and tell everyone really what you do and who you are, and then we can kind of share a little bit of how we met and that kind of story. Like,
Well, let's start with the name. So I am Daisy Quinn by birth, Daisy Mack by marriage, and despite being married for many years now, we're coming into year 8. I have resisted taking the name, and it's all been about the fact that I'm like, well, everybody knows me in my career, which is so important to me as Daisy Quinn, and I just refused to change my name in the mix of all of that. I was really lucky. I got a bit of success in my 20s in the music industry and created a lot of identity around the job, the glamorous job, and what I found to be my glamorous name. So my poor husband has been on, on the back foot where I semi took his name, and now I can't decide. So I think it's Daisy Mack, but there has been a bit of Daisy Quin Mack filtering through. And let me also say that everybody loves a brand these days and everybody wants you to commit to one thing. I'm taking all the possibilities. Daisy Quin Mack, Daisy Mack, Daisy Quinn's still lasting on one bit of social media, and I'm gonna hold on to all of them for 2022. Just find me at
uh,
Spiritual Mixtape instead.
oh my gosh, I love that. Well, first of all, Quinn is such a beautiful name. I mean, I'm going to just offer a little bit of my unsolicited thought process here. I mean, we are in 2022. Why could that hybrid format name not be both your husband's and yours? Why could Quinn Mac not be a thing?
Oh, oh, I know. I wish that he would Aaron Taylor Johnson it and keep Quinn in there. But he's definitely a macho man from Essex. You'll see him on my socials as well. He's not changing his name,
Oh,
but he's
okay.
chill about me keeping mine. So that
Okay.
is our happy. That is our happy place. I'm very lucky to have that. So career-wise, how did we get here? So Corey and I, we met on a Hypnobreathwork certification. It's totally my jam, the breathwork. But let me also tell you that in 2018, I didn't know how to breathe at all. And I remember I used to also like to pay a lot of money for my wellness in my life. And I used to think that paying through the nose for things meant that I was being healthy, even if my lifestyle wasn't. So I was in the height of my music career, VP at a big music conglomerate, and paying for wellness rather than actually being well because that is what I had time for and that's what I thought I should do. And I remember this yoga teacher looking at me just being like, you can't breathe. Like, as a moment of just being like, do you realize that you can't breathe right now, that you don't know how to breathe? And I was just like, what the F is this woman saying? What does she know? And was very personally offended by her correct observation. I couldn't breathe. And right after that sentence, she said, I think you should quit your job. And
Wow.
I just didn't take it in. It took me a following year to actually leave the music industry. And I really had quite a long grieving process over that year of like, can I leave this thing? What am I doing? But also, as I've started to write a book, which will come out later this year,
So
yes, I
excited.
know. I'm starting to realize that there was a lot of stuff that I just wasn't seeing. Um, and as I coach my clients through similar problems that I was going through, I've started to see all of the ways in which the universe was actually pointing me off in this new direction, and all of the pain I experienced was actually my own resistance of like not leaving. I don't actually think I've answered your question, but
Okay, this is where we're like on the journey. You're answering it. What I love though is you're just literally breaking down what the process is of an awakening, of the journey of healing. So you were like in the process of it, because even in that place and space when you were kind of like throwing money at it, there was this integral part of you that knew it was something that you needed. And wow, you think about how amazing it was that that teacher saw that, had the guts to share her intuitive thoughts with you. And while it may not have landed right away, we're talking about right now. So it 100% went in, you heard it, you just were resisting it, but it made a difference and an impact for you hugely, because I feel like there had to have been some processing that started to happen, and this like little voice in the back of your head going like, wait, should I quit my job?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like I probably threw out a lot. Like, I need to quit this job. Um, I think that I came into the music industry. I actually came in from the fashion industry. I was all about a glamorous job. I don't know how many of the American listeners will relate. Actually, there's two big '90s TV cultural points that I could give you that I hate to admit it, I based my career choices on. One is Samantha from Sex and the City. Why?
I mean, she had a pretty fun ride. So, I mean, if I was going to model my life.
It felt like a good idea at the time. It's one of those, like, it's like that Instagram caption of feels cute, might delete later, where I was following Samantha Jones in Sex and the City, but I was also following Eddie from Absolutely Fabulous, who was, that's a British comedy show, but it was very in tune with what was going on in the 90s in the UK, where we had Cool Britannia, and there were just gorgeous like women in PR married to rock stars, and this felt like a place that I should be in the middle of. And anyway, I entered the fashion industry. I was super lucky. I got to work on brands like Harry Winston right from the onset. My life was very different. It was pre the 2008 crash, so life was like money. Like there,
Yeah,
I hate to keep talking about it, but it does make the world go round.
of course.
And um, there was lots of money. I got to go to Paris 6 times in my first year of working, so I was up to my eyes in student loans, but I was traveling like an A-lister through Paris and going to couture shows. But through through a piece of trauma that we won't get into, but that lots of women have experienced, I ended up wanting to change my whole life at like 23, because I was kind of running away from a traumatic event I wasn't ready to deal with. And I decided to run into the music industry and talking to you. I'm also beginning to understand how a lot of my like decisions are like slightly nuts. But I was really lucky. I There was still a bit of money in like the fashion industry, and actually a client gave me a little pool of money to book some DJs, and I found this amazing unsigned act, reached out to his management, asked to book him, and they sweetly said that was a lot of money and we're not going to take it from you, but would you like to come in and meet us anyway? I went in desperate to change my life, really. And they offered me a job within the agency. That act later became huge. He's called Calvin Harris.
Oh my! Oh, just Calvin Harris.
I know, but it's one of those things actually where even if you're running away from like something you're not ready to deal with, if you do stay aligned with your true essence, you'll find your path.
What I think is amazing is the piece of integrity that you just shared, that you were trying to give them money and they said no. I mean, how often inside of the music industry do you feel that that is the story?
I'm so glad that you've said it like that because I felt real like sadness when I've told the story because wouldn't it have been cooler if they said yes and I got to like party with them? That was how this all happened. They said no. But I'm glad that you see it like that. I'm still friends with the management team. I saw them recently. The person who actually ended up giving me his job, Calvin's agent, I'd just been on holiday with in Mexico as a family friend. So a lot of doors opened from really a bit of trauma that I was running away from. And the reason I'm saying that to you is because I don't hide any of this, and I definitely talk to my clients about it. But the reason I then switched again 12 years later and left the big job was because I burnt out. And in the midst of burning out in this role that I was in, my dad was super ill with cancer, and maintaining that busy lifestyle, being constantly available, which is what I built my career on, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I feel like my music industry career was really bookended with trauma each side. But those tough lessons, those low moments, those awakenings really led me to this path. And now I get to talk to people like you for my job, which is so awesome. How lucky am I? Um, so, yeah, so I'm basically here because I followed where I felt I needed to be healed. Even if that first bit of trauma that led me into the music industry felt a bit like running away, I think my heart just wasn't ready to heal in a way that looked like dealing with something right on the surface. For me, I had to create a bit of validation outside of myself, create a bit of self-esteem in order to move through that and eventually deal with it further down the line.
I think that's such a beautiful story, and I think the big piece of that, and something I think that we, like as a community, when we were going through our breathwork training together, realized is that our traumas or our obstacles truly are part. They become part of your after the healing process get to be a part of your identity. That is, it's like your gift, your talent. That's what you get to bring to your clients, and how you help them can share your compassion and all of the things. So of course it's awful that any of us have to experience struggle or traumas, but no one ever reached greatness. You never hear someone at the top or experiencing massive greatness without these stories that and these things that come along, the struggles, the pain, the traumas, all of it.
I completely agree. It's those. I do listen to this with other coaches as well, and I always feel quite warm and fuzzy because you can hear the difference from someone who's really been broken wide open, and the compassion and the empathy and the place that they meet you at, versus someone who has had a life where they're yet to have that moment, and maybe they won't have it at all. And I actually quite like being cuddled by the people that haven't, that have that beautiful innocence. Whereas I guess the ultimate is that you can have the innocence and you can have experienced the trauma, and you can bring both to the plate for your life, for your friends, and for your clients if you're in the coaching space. But there is I can now hear. Oh my god, I hate to bring up Harry Potter, but this is a perfect way. Perfect.
I love this. This is so funny. Harry Potter's been coming up a lot, and I love it. So I mean, Harry Potter, bring it on.
Well, it's like I think it's at the beginning of the fifth book. I was like mildly too old to have really read these books, like by a few years, but I've read them all and obviously watched the films. But there's like that beautiful scene at the beginning where they're going into Hogwarts, and only Harry and Luna and a few others can see the really ugly horse creatures that are pulling the carriages. And they get told that you can only see them when you've experienced basically like grief, death, like when you've experienced, it's a bit deeper
yes,
than
I
those books.
remember this. I do. I
Yeah,
remember
and
this.
it's like if you've seen death or like firsthand, then you can see these creatures, and you can understand how you're being pulled along. And I actually think that that is a perfect illustration of what I'm trying to say, which is you have a depth of understanding of how the world works that you just don't have when you haven't had your heart broken.
Oh my gosh, I love that analogy because I feel like it does actually perfectly explain it. It becomes like this additional layer of the universe that is consistently happening around you, and until you've experienced it, you're just kind of oblivious to it, which kind of equates to that statement of like ignorance is bliss. That it's not that all of those things that you aren't occurring around you, you just don't like notice them, you're not aware of them, they're not, there's no context. And so with context becomes this understanding and compassion that you're able to bring forth to the people that you interact with, your relationships, your coaching practice, all the things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you called it. You know, you wish that nobody could go through. You don't. It's not really a great thing to go through the trauma, but lots of people have, and that's kind of what. Yeah, that's the kind of idea of like heartbreak, and you know, it's like all the love songs when you're a teenager as well that you don't understand until you've had that like first heartbreak, and then everything on the radio sounds like it was written especially for you. Not that
Yeah.
anybody has radio anymore, like on the playlist.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Just prior to that, you're bopping along innocently to the beat, like this is like a great song. And then all of a sudden you're sobbing the next day hysterically because now you get it.
Like, I understand.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so funny. So along this journey, I'd imagine there have been some super expanders for you. So tell me a little bit about like who those people have been for you. If there's one in particular or you want to share more than one,
Um,
definitely.
you know what? There's definitely been a few, and as I write this book, there are people I had, you know, I'm not in contact with anymore, because that's life, you know, that you have these friends. And I actually, a great story to tell you is as we started the Hypnobreathwork, not even the certification, but just as Francesca had started to come into, she's the creator of Hypnobreathwork, started to come into the Pitch Club Collective, which is Rebecca Caffrey's collective of women, which I'm part of. She recommended a book called, oh my God, now I can't remember it. Something to do with the subconscious mind. We'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, was it Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by
No,
um
that's
no? Joe
Joe
Dispenza.
Dispenza. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like an older one, and usually everything's on my like everything's around me on my desk. But because we've been on holiday, I cleaned up. So there was, but the point is, there was a book that she said that you should buy. So I bought it on Amazon. It arrives, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, this is familiar. And a few days later, I go to put it on the bookshelf and find a copy of it that I've literally carried around the world with me since I was 24, and a friend had gifted it to me. And inside is like a it's not a subscription, whatever, when you write a nice note when you
Oh, oh, see, it put it, your friend had put a note in there, just like a little note card.
yeah, with a date and everything, just being like, you know, hope you enjoy reading this. I think you'll really like it, something like that. And I was just like, wow, this like this is another one of these signposts in life. And
Yes.
what's really incredible about this particular friend, who sadly I'm not in touch with anymore, but he had also gifted me Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, when I was 24 as well, which was a very big game changer. I didn't really grow up in a house where my dad had You Can Who Moved My Cheese, and that was it. Like that, he had that one book, but we weren't really a family where there was much self-development. There wasn't books like that like lying around the house, and also it was the 90s, it wasn't a thing. Like the 80s and 90s, whatever, nobody cared. And or like
Yeah.
people cared about Weight Watchers and stuff, but they didn't necessarily care about the self-development of mind. So he gave me those two books, and I was like, this is amazing. He also gave me another book called You Can Feel the feel the fear but do it anyway. So all of these amazing books that he had like invested in my self development. So I would say that Ryan, who wherever you are in the world, I'm sure he's doing amazing things. Thank you for those books. They were definitely expanders for me. And you know, another person I'm going to throw into the mix as an expander is a guy called Guy Onadal. He was one of my bosses. Um, with my first job in the music industry. So this was Calvin Harris's agency, and there were two bosses. Simon, who I'm still very good friends with, you're an expander too. He's going to be really happy to hear that. But what he's going to be surprised about is I'm going to say that Guy Onadell, who was a DJ and my boss, he gave me Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and inscribed, that's the word, inscribed in the front is like 2009, like, you'll read this when the time is right, love, Guy. And I didn't read it until 2019, so this is 10 years. And again, I carried this book from London to LA, brought it with me when we moved, and just never read it until I left the music industry. And there is a beautiful paragraph, or like, you know, short succinct chapter towards the end about being light beacons, and the whole idea that you don't need to be front and center, that you can just hold frequency by being a light. Like, that's all you need to do. You actually don't need to do anything else but be yourself and be this light. And I remember reading that and reading the inscription and just being like, oh wow, this is like, time and space doesn't exist, and this was gifted to me, and right, like, for me to read this at this very moment, like this real special moment. And I couldn't have been a more challenging employee to this man. I think I drove him up the wall, yet there was such kindness in him to still gift me this book and see that somewhere down the line this was going to be really useful to me. So he's an expander for me.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure he saw, whether you think he you drove him nuts or not. I'm sure he saw, just he saw the light in you. He saw your passion, your potential, all of the things, the love, just like the amazing human that you are. So he gave it to you because of that. I highly doubt that he he
You're
really.
you're seeing a lot of work has gone into this person that sits in front of you. Trust me, when I'm in my masculine energy and that old job, um, I was ruthless and ambitious. I wouldn't say to anyone's particular detriment, but I was ruthless and ambitious to get what I wanted and needed for myself and my clients. There wasn't much stopping me, and you're sitting with someone now who's far softer, um, and I wouldn't say necessarily kinder, because I think I've always been kind, and I'm definitely ruthless in my pursuit for my clients' wellness. Like, those things haven't changed, but they definitely sit in a more neutral space rather than sitting in the masculine and the headstrong. So poor old Guy, he definitely had a challenge managing me, flexing his management muscles for sure.
He enjoyed the challenge, I'm certain of it.
You're
But
sweet.
I love those stories about how those books, I mean, that's such, wow. I mean, and the fact that they would come around at like the most perfect time, the divine timing that they came through for you. There was almost like foreshadowing, or like, you know, they obviously knew that somehow on their intuition that these were going to come at a time and thrust you forth into your next endeavor, your next journey.
For sure. I mean, like, you know, I feel really lucky that I actually am sitting here with you now, and I'm like, which expander do I pick next? Because I'm so lucky to have had plenty.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to save those for like a whole other podcast, because you know we're gonna do this again for sure. I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit about Spiritual Mixtape. It's first of all, the name is maybe the coolest name ever, so that there's just that. But Tell us about it. Tell us all the things about it.
So look, spiritual mixtape for me the is the thing that I was looking for. Is my antidote to modern living. I feel like our lives keep us really locked in the masculine. And while I wouldn't say spiritual mixtape is the answer to living more in your feminine, I would say it is the opportunity to find your neutral ground and to meet yourself in a place that is kinder to your development than the place that you would perhaps take yourself to if there wasn't a safety net, if there wasn't another option. So, really, I found that when I was working in this high pressure, fast paced society, or not even society, fast paced career, I was fine until real life, my father got sick. I could actually handle my psoriasis, which has been and can be really bad, and like the pain from the psoriatic arthritis when I was working could be awful, and I'd have to medicate and not work out, like do all these things that were like the antidotes usually weren't available when I was feeling my body was really inflamed. But I actually found that if I was just dealing with my own illnesses, my own things, I could keep going in my job. But when real life caught up with me in terms of my dad being sick and that whole situation feeling out of my control, there was no way I could keep up with the job anymore. So, really, what Spiritual Mixtape was born out of was looking for answers to live my life more holistically and with real care about my health and my future. Like, my health is wealth, as they all say.
Yeah.
So, Spiritual Mixtape really is coaching. It's helping people align with what's really inside of them as opposed to what they feel they should be doing. And I coach one on one. Maybe this year with the book will come group classes, but I really get a lot out of being one on one with people. That definitely comes from my career in the music industry and really living in my co workers as well as my artists' lives. I like digging deep into what's going on and finding the root cause, and then setting new habits, new practices in place so that whatever's been bothering you in the past is no longer an issue, creating a bit of freedom, creating a bit of space. So that's what Spiritual Mixtape is. I've definitely surprised myself with how woo woo I can actually get. Um, and I do truly believe that finding your breath helps you find yourself. I do also believe that finding your intuition and finding your connection with something bigger really creates healing as well as new positive paths for you to go down. Um, all things that I didn't really appreciate prior to this journey. I thought that if you could have a goal and you could be ruthless in your pursuit of this goal and single minded and single focused, that you would be able to get it, and at the end of that would be happiness. Whereas I don't believe that anymore. I believe that being open to what the universe has to tell you and living in that surrender is actually where the real serendipity, the real magic happens. And I guess maybe I would have said 5 years ago that I believed that, but I didn't actually live it. I didn't allow for it. I still believe that if I steered the ship hard enough, strong enough, then everything would be okay, which I guess is a form of anxiety taking hold of your life. So, Spiritual Mixtape is anti anxiety, um, and helps you steer your ship in a way that you're not trying to change the weather, you're just keeping keeping things afloat.
Yeah, so you're like your Harry Potter reference. It's like spiritual mixtape is like opening up that other layer of the universe. So now you'll actually get to see like the unicorns and the magic and that happens out there.
Bring it on. Woo, 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 woo. All the time. 24/7.
I love it. Jokes aside though, I it's an amazing thing that you're creating, experience that you're creating for people, sharing your journey, and then also guiding them on theirs to connect with that intuition and surrender, because it I mean, I personally believe that when you connect to your intuition, it's our direct dial up with that source power. And when you finally start to listen to that, which we've all been so trained to turn the volume down so low, it becomes almost unrecognizable. That that's when the magic happens. And you can't really tell what that magic is in terms of like what's coming for you until you've already experienced it. So it's like connecting the dots. You can't connect the dots until they've already happened, right? You have to look backwards to connect the dots. And so when we connect with our intuition and all of the things that come with that, it's just a sequence of events that leads to this beautiful life and beautiful existence. So many opportunities, so many new relationships, and just a greater sense of just joy and happiness. Like that's really what this life is about.
100% with you. I love the way that you talk about connecting the dots as a like a forwards backwards like motion where you can't do it until you've experienced them. You can't connect something that you haven't embodied yet. So
Right, we all want the map, right? We
yeah,
want the map with the exact steps we're supposed to take to get to the exact thing, but that's not how it works. So until you can step into that trust and just start taking the steps and know that it's going to turn into this like super cool picture. Otherwise, we just stay stuck and rooted in a lot of discomfort and resistance. It's not for us to know what the sequence of events, how they are supposed to play out. I love that because it's like one of the things that I recently am like, oh, like I really get it. I always hear that when people are talking about manifestation, that it's like you're it's not for you to know the how, or like the universe is it's that or something better. And it is totally true when you start leaning into these like intuitive action steps and just listening to them rather than questioning them. You get to a point and you're like, dang, that was not what I had planned, but I freaking really love this.
I mean, that is like that's the whole idea of surrender, though, isn't it? Just like allowing it. Surrender is such a funny word because I think it has like biblical references for people, or it has like
Yes,
uncomfortable connotations for some people. But
absolutely.
it is that idea of just sitting back and being like, oh, okay, I know what I want, but how I get there is up to the universe, and I
Yes.
need to be chill about whatever. If something else comes in, be chill about it and just start to appreciate what's there in front of you.
I know we have cars that are getting ready to start driving us around. Why can't we live our lives that way,
My car
right?
does this already. I'm new to driving because I lived in London for so long, and my car now does this weird thing where it like jilts the steering wheel, and I'm like, what, like, stop. But I guess I have to be aware to the fact that it's really nice that someone is not
Looking out
telling
for
me
you.
off for driving badly, just giving me a nudge, keeping me in the right lane as I start to, which is definitely a Daisy problem. Don't we all like, oh, what's going on in that lane? Stay in your lane, Quinn.
Oh
Stay
my
in
goodness.
your lane.
Metaphors for life, right?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. So here's a question for you. We're starting out this year. We're at the very beginning, and I would love to know, how would you like to feel at the end of 2022? So there's a lot, it's the year that kicks off. There's so much talk about goals and accomplishments. And because we're surrendering, right, and we're just allowing the greatness to come our way, I feel like focusing on how we actually want to feel is a pretty impactful way to create the exponential things we want to create in this world. So, how would you like to feel?
You know, I'm going to go with the word masterful because I just can't help but be in my masculine energy when someone asks me a word like ask me a question like that, and I just go over to the right hand side. But I would say that it's masterful because not that long ago, so just a few years ago, I started this new path, and I love it and I want to stay in it. I don't want to go back to corporate entertainment industry. So I would like to feel masterful. I would like to feel like I've got this coaching and this breath work down to a T so that I am able to create for myself and for others positive transformation. And the way to do that is to be masterful in what I do, to take it on and get right up in the crevices and know my work and know my mission, um, and be all in all of the detail. So I'm going to go with I would like to be masterful at the end of this year.
I just got chills with that. And it's funny because I actually think that there's a lot of femininity in energy in being masterful too. Because if there's creativity within in that, there is passion in mastering something. So I must feel like I want to even challenge you to find your feminine. And this is coming from someone who lives and is like doing the dance constantly, having to like put myself back into like some sort of feminine flow and not be like, I'm gonna beat this thing, I'm gonna master this thing, like we're talking about, I'm gonna crush it. So we'll have to continue this conversation of how masterful actually can be a feminine energy as well.
I'm in. Coach me through it, please, Corey.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll be like, well, coaching each other through it. How about that?
I'm also in.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just make it a thing. Okay. So one last question as we tie this fun little conversation up in a bow. If you were to give yourself, your younger self, any bit of advice, what would it be if you could go back and tell her?
Um, Great question. And I definitely have flip flopped between what I would like to say, and something that's just popped into my head um, is this. And I really wish I could go back in time and say this to myself. May all the bridges you burn light your true path. And obviously, that's an older saying where people say, may all the bridges you burn light your path. But I wanted to make the little addition of light your true path, because I think we as women worry a lot, and men too, but definitely women in the workplace, like just me and my education as well, really worried about maintaining certain relationships for career purposes, and having to stay neutral or not really even saying what you needed to say, or withholding until you just got really angry and then you blow up or whatever. Like, not everyone's like that, but I tend to hold back, and then everything pops out when at situations that maybe didn't call for it.
Twin
But
flames. I think we're twin flames.
so you relate, you get me. But I would like to say to that younger self, may all the bridges you burn light your true path. Like, don't be scared to burn things down that don't feel right. There's also a way of doing it that doesn't need to cause you pain or the other person pain, but don't put energy into places that aren't going to support where your true path actually lies. Like, let them burn, let them light your way. You won't regret it as you proceed down the path, but you're only holding yourself back from walking that path if you don't let these things go.
Oh, so good. I feel like I'm gonna write that on a sticky note and put it on my mirror. Oh my
Do
gosh,
it.
yeah, I'm going to. I'm going to be sending you pictures of my bathroom mirror with a sticky note on. I leave myself notes like that? Though. I don't know. Do you ever do that?
I do that. I haven't done it in this particular house, but I do it. And I was thinking this morning I should start again. So
Oh,
let
see,
that
there we go.
be. Let that be.
Divine timing.
Yeah, 100%.
So, for all of the amazing listeners, how can they find you?
Well, I hang out a lot on my Instagram. So just the usual Instagram spiritual mixtape, all one word. I'm there. My website as well, www.spiritualmixtape.com.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
that's
so
so good.
awkward.
It is. Isn't so funny? Yeah. And never fear that all of this information will be in the show notes
Check the
for
show notes.
check the show notes.
But yeah, find me on the Instagram, talking to fun people like you. Um, Sadly, not enough on my TikTok. Please encourage me to do more TikToks. And yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Amazing. So grateful for you for making the time to have this amazing, fun conversation. We'll have to like revisit this. Like we'll have to have a second edition on the Super Expander, check in on how Masterful is going. And and have another conversation about Super Expanders because it's just too much fun.
Oh, I'm right with you. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely way to spend a Friday.
Love it. Thank you so much.
See you soon.
See you soon.